we can move on to our speaker portion today. Doug's going to be speaking first. Doug is giving his 7th speech. It is speech number 5 or project number 5 in the manual, talking about Your Body Speaks. As you guys know, Doug and Pam are in this contest to run through the Competent Communicator manual. So I'm really looking forward to hearing Doug speak today. And as a side note, I want to mention that last week Doug attended the workshop on Thursday that Sandy and Glenn were encouraging. And I think the biggest comment you took from that was give it a try without notes. So I'm going to go ahead and put Doug on the spot. He's not going to be using notes today. Yes. But we're looking forward to hearing it. Doug Pullen.
Oh boy. So last week I went to the Art of Evaluations workshop, and I gotta say it was absolutely fantastic. It's been a long week. I'd been on PTO the week before and was trying to catch up on everything, and I almost didn't go. I was just like, forget it. And I was like, every time I go to one of these conferences or one of these workshops for the district, I always go away very positive and very enthusiastic. And so I decided to go. And I can't tell you how glad I was that I went. So I'm going to spend the next 5 minutes or so talking about some of the things that I learned. Is everything all right?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is that your introduction? I'm sorry.
That's, yeah, pretty good. Let's spend the next 5 minutes talking about what I learned. So the format of the presentation was the host got up and talked about different evaluations and had some handouts, which I will email to everybody after this. I've got them scanned. I just haven't had time to email them out yet. And after she got done explaining different techniques and showing us different handouts about different techniques, we had 3 speakers, and the first 2 speakers we did a normal eval like we do here every week, with the caveat that the group evaluated the evaluator afterwards. So the first speaker, his name was Eric, really amazing guy. He was doing his 10th speech, and can anybody guess how many weeks he had been doing his 10th speech in? 8. Okay, I feel like a slacker now, right? Wait, it gets worse. Not only was it his 10th speech in 8 weeks, but he moved to the United States from France 8 weeks, not knowing English, joined Toastmasters to help him learn English. Wow. It was his 5th language that he's learned. He grew up in a small village in Africa and had learned 5 different languages previously, and then lived in France for the previous 10 years, but really made me feel like a slacker. But the one thing I did learn from him is that he was going from club to club to give his speeches instead of just constantly doing it at his club. I didn't even get credit for that. And his speech title was The 2 Most Important Moments of Your Life. It was a really good speech. The second speaker, his name was Johnny, and he was giving a speech on how to clean a 4,000-foot house in an hour and a half. And it was really good. He was working from the Competent Communicators Manual. It was fabulous. After they did the evaluation, and then the group did his evaluation, everybody was having a hard time coming up with anything to give him an improvement on. The host was like, Doug, is there anything you think you can improve on? I was like, ugh. And actually the mathematician in me said, yes, I want proof that your techniques will improve somebody's time to an hour and a half on a 4,000 square foot house. And he was like, oh, you're right, I didn't have any proof, darn it. I was like, phew. The third speaker, we used a different technique to evaluate. We used the interview technique. So he went up, he did a speech, his name was Bob, and he did a speech on how to be a better speaker. And his motivation for the speech was Presentation Secrets of Steve Jobs. And he used this book as a motivation for his speech, and he gave a fabulous speech, and he was working out of the Advanced Speaker's Manual also, and it was really good. And it was really interesting when we got to the interview technique for the evaluation. And the first question the evaluator asked him was, every time you talked about your 3 main points, you always raised your fingers. Was that intentional? And the speaker said, yeah, it absolutely was. I wanted to reinforce visually what I was talking about so that people knew there was 3 things that I thought was important from that book to being a great speaker. The second thing was every time he talked about different kinds of slides that had too much information on them and slides that didn't have enough, he kept pointing like this to an empty whiteboard. And the evaluator said, why didn't you have anything to show there? And it was interesting to hear the speaker's take on that. And he said, well, I really wanted to do a PowerPoint presentation, but this was the middle of the speech and I didn't know how to turn the projector on in the middle of a speech and show a couple of 2 slides. And the group kind of talked about it a little bit, and we said, well, there was a couple of things you could probably done. One, have a printout and hold it up so everybody could just get an idea of what a cluttered slide was and what a minimalistic one was. Or you could have gone to the board and drawn something to kind of just represent one that had too much and one that didn't have enough. The third question that was asked to him was, did you get out of that speech what you were hoping to? And he said, except for the pointing to the empty whiteboard, that he absolutely felt that he hit it out of the park, and we all agreed it was just a fantastic speech. Another technique that we talked about was a group technique, which I hope to use for this speech. That's why I only needed a written evaluator today. So the 3 main things that I got from attending there were, first, when you're evaluating somebody, and everybody talked about it happens more when you're evaluating people from the advanced communicator books, that if you can't think of anything that was wrong with their speech, to give them advice on how to present something that they did differently. Because you may give them a different point of view than they thought about and spark some kind of idea. I thought that was really good, because there's some times where you're just like, I can't critique that, there's just nothing wrong. So just give them a different idea on how to present something. Second thing was, the first speaker, he was great, but the one thing that he constantly did the whole time, it was like watching from the audience, it was like watching a ping pong match. He was just walking, he never stopped. And the suggestion was, as you're making a point, stop. Look around the audience, make eye contact with people. As you're transitioning your thought, then move. But don't move the whole time, because you just make people's necks sore. The second speaker actually had used that when he was doing his. I thought that was very effective. And the third and most important, I think profound thing that I learned during this was that as the evaluator, you are a key. You are the key to unlocking the greatness of that speaker. Mr. Toastmaster, thank you.
Doug, I agree with you. Leaving those